I came here thinking I was going to give a keynote. And what I really thought last night, it was last night that it's hit me. I just want to be honest with you guys. Relationships are incredibly important to me. I really believe in what they mean. I believe in what they hold. And I believe that they are the undercurrent of this movement. Water is life. That's why we're all here, right? And so if that's true, if that is really, really true, then what we're talking about today and what you're talking about in this conference overall is not just technology. We're talking about protecting something alive, something very fragile, something that can disappear if we stop paying attention to it. So I spent time preparing this grand speech and studying the industry and really trying my best to get it right. And the deeper truth is I don't want to stand up here and perform for you. I don't think that would be very authentic. It kind of goes against the whole entire premise of the speech here. I just want to be real. And I think that if we don't squeeze every ounce of clarity, honesty, and care that's already in this room, that's already held by this conference, then things dry up. And when things dry up, they stop moving, they stop connecting, and they stop growing. So here's the truth I keep coming back to. The humans are the undercurrent, starting with all of you in this room. And your job is not only to manage the flow, but your job is to make the systems safe enough for people who enter the current of change. That is the work, that is the calling, and that is why this room matters. So I was at a utility at one point a couple of years ago, and I was talking to the leadership team around the table. We had the CEO, we had the head engineer, we had the head of operations, we had the head of customer service, and the CIO. And on the whiteboard, there were a couple of words. I'm sure you've seen them a time or two before. AI roadmap, year one. The interesting part about this is what was not actually being said among them. The engineer, he was the one that came up with the plan. He had the short vendor list. He had the pilot. He had all of this excitement, and he was so ready to deliver this amazing plan. But the room, the CEO, was doing one of those really polite nods. The CIO was kind of doing one of these, like, you're about to call this a solution and make it my problem, right? That's what you're going to do now. The head of operations was looking at his phone, and the head of customer service hadn't said a word in 45 minutes. And so after the meeting, the CEO pulled me in the hallway and he's like, "Oh, Keri, I just don't know that I can really get behind this. I don't know that I believe in this, but I don't want to kill the momentum of my top and best engineer." And so I've never forgotten that. And what that taught me was that the hallways are where these kind of initiatives with tech and anything that we do, any innovation that we have, that's where they live or die. It's not in the deck. It's not in the strategy. It's not in the platform. It's the things that people don't have the courage to say to one another, or the things that they carry out of the room and they don't say at all. That's the hard part. So the water industry right now is in the middle of one of the most significant transformations of all of our careers. AI, digital twins, predictive systems, analytics. That's why we're here, right? And so everybody here already knows that. What we don't say enough is this: the technology is not the deepest story. The human current underneath it is. It's the trust. It's the candor. It's the relationships. It's the willingness to tell the truth before the truth forces its way out. Because every system, every utility, every transformation, excuse me, and every algorithm starts upstream of itself, before the data, before the dashboard, and before the decision is made. The source is always a person. If the source is off, then everything downstream feels it. So today, I'm going to give you 5 movements, 1 story, and at the end, I'm going to give you 5 things that you can do on Monday. Not things to think about, things that you can actually live. The first move is the signal. Before you name the change, listen for the signal. In every room, there is what gets said, and there is what gets carried out. What I've learned after nearly 2 decades working with executives and being inside boardrooms is that organizations, they don't resist change. They resist the unprocessed signals of change. So this is the CEO saying, "Hey, I've spent 30 years building my career, building this trust with the government, with the board, with the community, and I don't know that I can trust this initiative just yet." The CIO is the one saying, "Please, please, please do not hand me a complicated problem and call it progress." The operations person may be saying, "My people are stretched, really. They're really, really stretched thin right now." And the person who says nothing, that person is what's saying the loudest. Because see, silence means 3 things: fear, fatigue, or fury. Silence is not empty. Silence is data. And in a world where water is life, we cannot afford to miss what is happening beneath the surface. If we miss the signal, we miss the people. And if we miss the people, then we miss the movement. The first job of leadership is not to fix. It's to notice. It's to attune. to feel the current before you try to change its direction. Movement number 2 is the silo. And no, the silo is not the enemy. Neither is technology and neither is the transformation. The disconnection between people is. Engineering, operations, customer service, IT, finance, leadership, HR, each one has its own language, its own metrics, its own definition of success. Engineering, they care about uptime, right? Finance is looking at the rate base. They all carry a piece of the truth. And this is why digital transformation feels political, because in a lot of ways it is. We're asking 5 different disciplines to agree on a definition of better before we get them to agree on a definition of different. So what do a lot of leaders do? They try to break the silos. They go through a major reorg. They go ahead into a matrix level. They create a new role, a chief digital officer role, and they think that's going to fix everything. But water doesn't move according to our org chart, does it? And neither does change. You cannot break a silo. You can only bridge it. And so this is why the work that we're doing here and the work that you all here are doing the next couple of days is not to force everybody to speak the same language. It's to build enough trust that all of the languages can move together. That is the bridge. And bridges are not built from a memo. They're not built from a town hall or a board meeting. They're built from that shared language that you can come to terms on together. It's shared purpose, shared metrics, shared responsibility, that shared language. They're built when 2 different people in 2 different parts of the system stop defending their own lane for long enough to ask, what are we really trying to protect? When the answer is the customer, when it's the community, when it's the watershed, when it's the future, the conversation changes, it softens, it deepens, and it becomes a lot more honest. That's how silos operate as one powerful flowing system, not because we break them, but because we connected them and we built something more human between them. The third movement is the split. Every team, every utility, every transformation has one. Sometimes leadership is ahead of the organization, and sometimes mid-level organization is way ahead of the CEO. Sometimes the room has the plan, but they don't yet have the trust. And if nobody says that out loud, then that turns into distance. It turns into tension. Then it turns into delay, and then it turns into blame, and people move down 2 distinctly very separate paths. And so as many years as I've spent in boardrooms, the one thing that I know is water finds the crack, and people do too. When I work with organizations and lead them through transformations, the 2 fault lines are usually mid-level leading up or top level trying to push down. Both of them are right. But until that split is named, until the engineer or the person leading the initiative from the middle feels supported, or until the CEO feels less pressure, they rarely come back to converge. So if you think about this, when you go through this kind of momentum, the operators, they're very fatigued. Middle managers are bracing for impact without really knowing what they're bracing for. And the engineers are generally skeptical. Everyone wonders then why nothing is actually moving. So the healthiest leaders are the ones that say, here is where we are aligned, but also here is where we are not. They name it. They say it out loud in the room to one another. That is not failure. That is courage, and that is stewardship. That is also how good ideas die quietly. Not because they were wrong, but because the room couldn't tell the truth to each other on time before things crack. This is the fun one. The human layer. AI does not replace the human layer. It reveals it. In some ways, I think we're being sold a fairy tale. AI is going to come. It's going to take certain parts of our job, make that easier. We're going to be able to focus on higher value, higher order work. It's going to take some of that load from us. And in some cases, I do believe that that's true. But in all cases, what I know is more true is that AI is a mirror. When you put any data into a system, it's a direct reflection of what already exists. It refracts back exactly what is. And so if your data is clean, then AI will make you faster. If your data is dirty, AI will make you very confidently wrong at scale. If your teams trust each other, then AI will compress your decision cycles. And if they don't, then AI will give them new ammunition for old arguments. If your leaders are clear, it will amplify you. And if they're conflict avoidant, then AI will simply amplify that avoidance. The human layer does not go away when the machines arrive. It becomes load-bearing. And that is the load-bearing walls of your company. That is the load-bearing wall of digital unity. So this movement in this moment is not just about technology. It's about character. It is about relationships. It is about the hard skills that used to be called soft, that people tend to ignore it and think meant we're going to sit around and sing Kumbaya. It's about whether the people in the room can hold the tension without breaking each other. It's about whether they can speak plainly without making someone feel small. It's about staying very curious and curious enough versus trying to be right and making sure everybody knows how exactly right you are. It's also about whether you recognize or not, you can hold the people who hold everything together because those people are already there. They are already in your organization. They are the translators. They are the bridge builders. They're the quiet stabilizers. They're in your customer service departments. They're in the field. They are already there. They are the ones that protect the human layer every single day. And so if water is life, then those humans are the life force. They're not support roles. They're not just structural. The future of the industry will not be decided by the smartest model, but it will be decided by the clearest humans and the cleanest relationships. The fifth movement is the commitment. So change management, it's not just a phase, it's a practice. It's the daily discipline of keeping the human current alive while the technology changes shape around it. I'm going to go back to the utility one more time. A year later, I was back in the same conference room with the same people and the same whiteboard. But this year, the room felt really different. It had something different on the whiteboard as well. The question was, what did we learn about each other this quarter? And that question, it changed everything. Because now the engineer was not just lit up about the technology. The engineer had a story about a family whose home didn't flood on Christmas Eve because the leak detection worked. The CEO was still cautious, but he was cautious about a decision that he was making in the future, not one that was already made in the past. The CIO had her arms uncrossed, and I think that was a win. And the operations lead was leading the meeting. The head of customer service, the one that didn't speak at all in the first meeting, that's the one that wrote the question on the board. Nothing about the path for that technology changed, but everything about the human current had. So that's what real change looks like. It's not a launch. It's not a speech. It's not a pilot. It's the daily, hourly, meeting by meeting discipline of keeping the human current moving alongside the technological one. It's a practice and a very intentional one. When those two currents align, that transformation feels like momentum. And when they diverge, it feels like significant, really heavy grief. Your job as a leader, as a sponsor, as a champion, and even maybe as a skeptic, is to keep them together. And why? Because that provides the way of being that keeps the source alive. So I promised you 5 things that you could do on Monday, and so here they are. The first one is to read the signal. Find one person that did not speak in your last big meeting. Take them out for coffee and ask them, what did you not say in that room? And listen. And then ask them one more question. This is my favorite. What else do I need to know? What they say after that is gold. That is what you really need in order to be able to stay attuned. And when you go into the next meeting, you are able to read that signal that much more. The second one is to build a bridge. Pick 2 groups or 2 functions that do not usually connect or see eye to eye or understand each other and ask them to answer one question. What are we trying to protect for the customer, for the community, or for the future? Or you could ask them, what does a good day look like when this works? Not if it works, but when this works. Then you bring 2 sides, you bring the 2 people onto the same side of the situation, and they're finally solving the same problem instead of seeing it from different perspectives. The third is to name the split. Say out loud where the alignment is weak. Do it with care, do it without blame, but just do it. The fourth one is to protect the humans who hold the human layer. Find the translators because they are there, the bridge builders, and the people who hold trust. Give them the power, give them a budget, and give them a seat at the AI table. The fifth one is to make the practice visible. At the end of every leadership meeting for the next 90 days, ask, what did we learn about each other today? I promise you that question will do more for you than any transformation deck ever will. So the machines are coming. This isn't about replacing you, but they will reveal you. They will reveal whether you've built trust. They will reveal whether you have protected the source. They will reveal whether the people in the room were treated like undercurrents or just ignored like background noise. They will reveal the trust you've built or the trust that you've broken. They will reveal the conversations you've had or the conversations that you've avoided. They will reveal the human current beneath your organization, the current that has always been there. And that has always been the real, irreplaceable infrastructure. So my question for you today is not, are you ready for AI? This moment and this answer that you have really matters because water leads to life. And if we want this industry to keep leading, we have to lead like that is true. Not just in the systems, not just in the relationships, but in the rooms and in the hallways between one another and from the source.